This is the Peter Pan review podcast of the Broadway musical, the more recent version. So I hope you enjoy this review. It gives a chance for me and some other people, professional and not so professional, talk about it. We had orchestra seats, as you can tell, and so we had great seats to see the performances, and it was enjoyed immensely. Yeah, one thing I'd like to add about going to the Peter Pan show was the fact that, of course, I drove and Christy was with me, and we were able to get down there early, so we found a parking place at the hotel, which was, I don't know, I think they had event parking for $10, but we could park near the elevator, and we could just go up a floor and go to the main area of the hotel, and we did grab some food there because we were early. I guess we entered about, I guess it was close to 6:30. The show was at 7:30, so they let an hour in advance, so a little after that, maybe 6:45. But then when we got inside, they didn't let you into the area where we were going to sit until about 7:15. I'm thinking it's probably a lot of checkout on that, the high-tech equipment. I could see them not letting people in until they felt like it was all checked out. So that resulted in about a 10-15 minute delay. The show lasted from that time to about 10, and they had a 15-minute intermission, but we were still able to get home by 10:30, so less than 30 minutes away. And it's probably normally about a 20-minute drive, so that wasn't bad. So it all worked out pretty well on that part. I just want to make sure I did cover, since we're talking about attending events like that. Again, the seats were provided by my son, who had a conflict on activities, and we were in the orchestra area, and we were close enough to the, well, I was right on a seat on the aisle, so I could stack my walker and not have to go store it anywhere. Well, I wanted to show you a panoramic view of where we were sitting, so you could see that we were down close, but the Robson Auditorium is nice, and I made a recording after the performances, following the rules of not having the iPhone out there during the performances, so you can see as they were coming out at the end. You get to see a little bit of the activity as far as the dancing and the choreography and the introduction of each of the members of the cast. And of course the main stars were there, and at that time they wanted to show Tiger Lily and some of the kids, and then we'll see some of the other things as far as members, and Captain Hook, of course, was one of the bigger stars, and of course Peter Pan makes a entrance in the air. I was wanting to know what your thoughts on the experience of going and the play itself.
It was a wonderful play, and it's really the background and all the Peter Pan was really good.
Hey, just a minute. How was the trip down there?
Not bad.
You thought I did a good job driving?
Yes, you did.
And we got a good place parking?
Yes.
And we got in?
Yes.
We got out in a fast time?
Yeah.
And you're going to thank your brother for his birthday gift of the tickets. What about that?
Birthday gift for the tickets. You're pathetic. Okay. That's really pathetic.
Pathetic. really pathetic. You can see the fun we're having. Well, Christy and I, we always have a fun time together. As you can see, check back the podcast on vacation if you'll see another time that we went on a trip to Phoenix. The main thing I wanted to do there is to show that as parents age, and particularly if they have some disabilities and they have child with special needs, then there is an issue at some point when they realize that you're no longer immortal. I think it's sometimes that realization is difficult to come by, and maybe that's another part of Peter Pan and the play is that never growing up. So we're going to show both sides of that. Some things that we're trying to do in our relationship as far as a family. I know that my son is helping on that, but there are also things that we're trying to encourage our daughter to do on her own, and some of those are just to be more aware of self-importance and doing things that's fun. She still needs some more challenges, and some of those are things that we're trying to get her to take on her own, but sometimes you have to give them a little nudge, and at other times they just kind of sit back and wait for something to happen, and that happens both with the parents and with the child in this circumstance. That's why I think the things we're covering in the podcast have a lot of side benefits.
Now on the big screen, and now the movie is coming to life on Broadway.
Yeah, the musical is currently running at the Aronoff Center, and Cincinnati Lifestyle's Michaela Hughes Shaw attended opening night to check it out.
All right, so Michaela, and I know the show has been going on for 70 years, the movie. Remind folks, they might be unfamiliar, or it's been a while here.
It's been a while, yes.
The story of Peter Pan.
Of course. So Peter Pan is this boy who really just never wants to grow up. So he lives in, I think it's Neverland, and the way that this musical starts off is he comes through the window, which sounds creepy, but I promise it's not. And he meets the kids who are like Wendy, so the darling children, and really he just takes them to Neverland and shows them all of the things. So it's like the boys just kind of run the world out there.
Wait a minute.
Very mischievous. There's a lot going on. And so Wendy ends up being their mom. I think if you haven't seen it in a while, this is a good refresher for sure. Yeah.
How does it translate on stage? I'm curious about that.
It translates so well. It's really cool just to see it all come to life, because I think we all love the movie. I remember watching the movie countless times growing up, but I mean, there's actual flying on the stage, which is so cool. Multiple times throughout the show as well. As you see right there, he just kind of comes in and you're like, wow, that is amazing. And also it's really cool to see how they incorporate Tinkerbell into the mix as well. She's super mischievous. She's always causing some sort of trouble, or she's jealous of Wendy, and you kind of get to see that play out. But the musical numbers are great, and so is the choreography. And I mean, as you can just see a taste right here, you're not going to be bored at this show. You're going to find something that you'll love for sure.
Love the costumes too.
Captain Hook. You have to have him on there
Captain
too.
Hook. He was the best for sure.
That is awesome. All right, so I mean, Michaela, was there something or anything really that surprised you about the show, and what was your big takeaway from it?
So one thing that was funny is in some of the opening scenes, they talk about, or Wendy, she said, all I need is like one viral video and I'll be rich. So they...
Wait a minute.
Exactly. They kind of bring it into the modern day. It still is very classic though, but I mean, even like the babysitter is distracted by their devices, so that's how the kids are able to escape and go fly away. Another thing that's really funny that you'll want to look out for is the alligator, of course. You can't forget the alligator, so he does make an appearance, and he is still causing chaos. So yeah, those two things really did surprise me, and they were hilarious. The show is so funny. There's a lot of comedy throughout it.
So how long is it running? Because I'm sure people will want to go see it.
Yeah, of course. It's running through the end of this weekend, I believe.
Okay, here's a Tik Tok review.
It was pretty good. I would probably see it again. There were some weird things, though, so let's talk about it. But first, Nolan Almeida plays Peter Pan, the lead. Amazing. Like, phenomenal. He's a junior in high school. Like, what a life he's living right now. He was so good. And then the actor that played Michael, who's the youngest brother in it, he's got to be like 6 years old. Teeny. I don't know which one played him because there's a couple listed and it didn't specify. But he was phenomenal as well. Like, he held his own the entire time with the adult dancers, singers, actors. He was great. There was a couple weird things though. Okay, so tell me why in Peter Pan, which is like a family show, right, that people bring their kids to. Tell me why no less than 3 separate times they say silly ass. It was either smart ass or silly ass. 3 separate times. Why? Like, that just seems out of character for the show, you know? I don't know. Also, the opening scene, they tried to put like a modern spin on it. So the opening scene is Wendy in her room trying to make a viral video so she can afford to go to medical school. So you start and you're like, okay, they're trying to do like a modern version of Peter Pan. But that's it for the entire show. There's no other modern day references for the entire, so it didn't quite fit. That was really kind of odd. The set design was kind of cool. They did a good job with that. The person who played Tiger Lily has a phenomenal voice, but they need to work on their acting skills, in my humble opinion. I hate to say that, but like, the flying by foy, amazing. Like, the tricks, the aerial stuff that they do, flying by foy, so good. Like, really, really outstanding. I would see it again. It was a pretty good production. It had some really nice features, and I would have liked to have seen more dancing. This could easily be a heavy dance show, but it seemed like the only real dancing came out right at the end of this big sequence that wasn't like very technical in dance. It could have been way more impressive, because it did seem like some of them were actually dancers, but the choreography was not there. Anyway, that's it. Peter Pan the musical. I would see it again, but it could have been better.
Well, I think maybe I'll have to contact her to see if she will start reviewing my podcast. I think that would be really fun. Well, we'll try it and see. That's on TikTok. Well, I know that I'm accused of not smiling enough, and you know, that's part of Parkinson's. It's probably the facial issues that you have, and sometimes you can be thinking funny things and funny people, and you miss out on carrying that across in your expression. I know that, you know, I'm trying to work on that a little bit. I think when I'm doing things with people versus just by myself, then it can be more banter and more fun. Of course, when you go see Peter Pan, it ought to be fun. There's a lot of kids there. It's a Friday night, and on Friday nights, most men probably are at the high school football game. And I know some women go there and families go there, but as far as the attendance there, at the Peter Pan, it was primarily kids, which you would expect, and their parents or grandparents, and then you'd find a few older women, and again you'd see some husbands, so you would get a mixture there. I think you'll see as I kind of go through this that I wanted to show the children version and what they saw first, and do some I guess video, and then as I follow up on this or go further, it's probably, you know, there's probably going to be some special notice there that is for people over 40. Now that's people that are getting old, and then you got the next group up that's getting older, and then you get up to the point where you get even older than that, and maybe even ancient. I'm sure my category is more in the you know, the ancient, but Sometimes when you're into software and you've dealt with change, then opportunities like this are fun. Our daughter, who has had special needs, born with orofacial digital syndrome, has given us, I guess, an opportunity to stay young. She's got a lot of things and ideas that she stays active in, and we have to kind of stay involved. And one of the reasons I got involved in some of the social media things was to kind of encourage her to be herself and go out there and do things on her own. And she's enjoyed that part of it. I'm going to try to get an interview and talk to her a little bit about this going to the play. I've done some of those before, and I think this time is a good time to do that and get her reaction of the play.
And
Time for
I was
Instant
wanting
Classic
to know
review.
what your thoughts on the experience of going and the play itself.
It was a wonderful play, and it's really the background and all the Peter Pan was really good.
Hey, just a minute. How was the trip down there?
Not bad.
You thought I did a good job driving?
Yes, you did.
And we got a good place parking?
Yes,
And we got in?
yes,
We got out in a fast time?
yeah.
And you're going to thank your brother for his birthday gift of the tickets. What about that?
Birthday gift for the ticket. You're pathetic. That's really pathetic. That's really pathetic.
Also, I'm going to be doing a review of the play. That's a little bit unusual, but I put some other reviews in there. There, some professional, one Tik Tok. But I think it's kind of nice to get the view from a person that's a little older and maybe has seen several versions of the Peter Pan. Of course, growing up, like everybody else, I've seen the old cartoon version, and I know that it's got kind of over the years got a little bit worn because of the fact that it has some things about some people in there, and it seemed to be a little bit of a not PC and talking about people that are Indians and things. So I want to kind of get into that, and then you see a mixture in the family there. You're going to see Wendy, who is black, but also you'll see a little better acting from the the people that are on the island. It's a little more than just saying grunt words or anything like that, but they're very good in their actor and presentation. As far as the review, and again, I think I'd have to give it awesome because I got that from a young guy, and several others were saying that too in their mothers, that this was an awesome show. And the reasons for it being awesome was the fact that it had a lot of flying, and if you've been watching America's Got Talent, you're seeing a lot of different things appear there that are kind of unique to that as far as the entertainment. And so seeing people fly around the way they did in this show is much different than what I'd seen in the past. I recall the time when you had more of a gymnast type approach to it, and there were certain things they could do, and it was entertaining to that level, but nothing like this as far as the flying around that they did. And the choreography, I mean, that's kind of unbelievable how they did that. But the actor, or the 17-year-old who was playing the part there of Peter Pan, was just 17-year-old, but he was also in high school. But he's going to be a great star, no question about that. Not only he was a good singer, but his movements and how he was able to handle himself in the air. I mean, he does a lot of things, and he has to be pretty much a risk taker. But as you see those people that can do those things. And again, I go back to America's Got Talent and other shows that you've seen where there are people that out there they're pushing a button a little. He did that. And again, the entertainment part of his people that were in the people, I thought was Tiger Lily was good. The part played there was a good singer, but also was very good in the acting. Obviously, Wendy was good, and there's a young kid in there that was good, and then no doubt the evil part of that was played well. I mean, you know, if you're going to have somebody with a hook like Captain Hook, you got to have somebody that can handle that part. And they did it with humor, but you know, the story does have a dark side, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And again, it's going to be for the over 40 crowd and the younger ones and younger families can kind of cut it off there as far as my review. So that's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
Peter Pan has taken flight at the Nederlander Theatre, and with new music and a little extra magic, this isn't the same show you grew up with.
Well, the thing is, when you come and see this, you're going to see old-fashioned meets new technology.
The high-flying production has been brought back to life, telling the story of the boy who never grows up.
And up you go!
But learning all those twists and turns mid-air takes quite a bit of expertise.
So I choreograph all the flying sequences.
Which is where Paul Rubin's role comes in, because he's been on the Broadway scene for decades.
A little over 30 years.
He's got help on hand from co-flight captains Ryan Perry-Marks and Bailey Frankenberg.
Getting to meet all the different people and hear and feel all the different energies of all the different houses, and getting to play so many historic theaters, and getting to share this beautiful story with the people of North America.
Oh, my shadow, what's the matter with you? Why won't you listen to me?
The show opened in Chicago just last night, and we wanted to know just how hard it is to fly.
It does take a lot of muscle work, and so there's a lot of training, and you get better progressively while you're doing it, and eventually you don't even think about it as much.
So with none of that, but armed with happy thoughts and pixie dust, I had a go.
And up you go.
This way to Neverland!
This is amazing. And let's just say the cast won't be calling me anytime soon. Now, if you missed opening night, don't panic. There are plenty of shows left. It runs through April 7th. We'll have all the information up on our website at WG.
I'm
The new national touring production of Peter Pan just hit the road. The musical, directed by Lonnie Price and featuring a book by playwright Larissa Fasthorse. Next stop, Baltimore's Hippodrome Theater. We got to know the stars.
To be Peter Pan, it's really quite an honor. It's such a magical story, and I think especially for young people, it's such a story of youth and hope and family and love. And I'm really only like a few years older than a lot of our target audience, and I think that's something that really excites me. It's a really cool show that I really love.
I think it's a huge responsibility and exciting opportunity to get to do. I feel like as Indigenous youth, there's this like dissonance of these characters that we all really do love in a certain way, but we also do, it's like it's both. It's like there's harm, and then there's also that love of feeling represented but feeling misrepresented. And so it's like now getting to use that nostalgia of this character that, you know, many kids and many Native kids really did want to see themselves in, to now to get to do that right is really exciting. And, you know, I've had a lot of people be like, wow, that's like a huge responsibility. You know, I want to do right by the community, and I want to do right by Larissa Fasthorse and right by Tiger Lily, and portray her in a way that will make young Native kids in the audience feel seen. And that's an exciting responsibility for sure.
I really never saw myself in a role like this before. Like, I've been typecast in specific roles before. So when I got into that audition room, they were like, they're like, girl, go sing for Wendy. I was like, okay. And yeah, it's just, I feel really honored and blessed, and like you said, a big responsibility. And someone that I knew from college reached out to me, and they were like, I'm so grateful and so happy that you're doing this, because like, I always wanted to play Wendy. I always wanted to see Wendy as someone who wasn't a little white girl. And I was like crying, like I was like, yeah, like that's very relatable.
We've been flying all around. But it's the most fun thing ever. Once you get up into the air and you get used to it, it's like, well, you did it too.
I did too. Yeah, you know, I never flew before in theater. So yeah, no, we got up there and I was like, oh, like I don't feel the floor, but it's really fun, and we really got the hang of it. This guy, wait till you see him fly. He is flipping and turning. Like it's so awesome.
I have a place where dreams are born and time is never planned. It's not on any chart, you must find it with your heart. Neverland.
I think the music is beautiful, and especially some of the underscoring, it's like a movie.
Yeah.
That's what's something really beautiful about it. And of course there's songs like Neverland. I think that's one of the most beautiful songs. Yeah.
I agree.
And we have new music, and that's something really exciting. There's a new song, Friends Forever, that I sing with Tiger Lily. And that song is just a blast.
When we did our first read through together, I like sobbed through like the first few songs that Nolan sang. I was just weeping, like the music is so amazing. And then, you know, hearing Hawa's voice, it's just like, I during that first read through, I forgot I was like in the show. I was just like watching and like crying, and I was like, this is so beautiful. And what I take away from the show most when I watch it and get to be on the side in the scenes I'm not in and just watch everything unfold is that it just like reminds me to remember like the magic of life, and that we have to have like an element of fairy dust in our lives.
Anyone can see it. Anyone can see anybody in the production and see themselves in that role or in any role.
And it's so exciting because this show is going to be the first show that so many kids see. And that's the best thing, I think, because I think we all remember our first show, and I think this show is such a magical thing and such that it'll just make some kids' day, and that's one of the things I'm most excited for.
Okay, now that we've enjoyed the fun side of Peter Pan and Never Growing Up, we're going to see the reality, maybe the dark side of what happens when people don't grow up. So, you know, you can proceed at your own risk. I found that sometimes when you're doing clinical things, it's okay, but when you show reality, you know, that's a lot more sensitive to people. So, just a fair warning. Thanks.
This is the Peter Pan story, roughly speaking. Peter Pan is this magical boy. Pan is the god of everything, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not an accident that he has the name Pan. And he's the boy that won't grow up. And he's magical. Well, that's because children are magical. They can be anything. They're nothing but potential. And Peter Pan doesn't want to give that up. Why? Well, he's got some adults around him, but the main adult is Captain Hook. Well, who the hell wants to grow up to be Captain Hook? First of all, you've got a hook. Second, you're a tyrant. And third, you're chased by the dragon of chaos with a clock in its stomach, right? The crocodile. It's already got a piece of you. Well, that's what happens when you get older. Time has already got a piece of you. And eventually, it's got a taste for you. And eventually, it's going to eat you. And so Hook is so traumatized by that he can't help but be a tyrant. And then Peter Pan looks at traumatized Hook and says, well, no, I'm not sacrificing my childhood for that. So that's fine, except he ends up king of the Lost Boys. In Neverland, well, Neverland doesn't exist, and who the hell wants to be king of the Lost Boys? And he also sacrifices the possibility that he'll have a real relationship with a woman, because that's Wendy, right? And she's kind of conservative, middle-class, London-dwelling girl. She wants to grow up and have kids and have a life. She accepts her mortality, she accepts her maturity. Peter Pan has to content himself with Tinkerbell. She doesn't even exist. She's like the fairy of porn. She doesn't exist. She's the substitute for the real thing. And so, but the dichotomy that you're talking about is very tricky because there's a sacrificial element in maturation, right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. And I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you. Because when you're 25, you can be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's, yeah, you're young, it's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant. So part of the reason you choose your damn sacrifice, because the sacrifice is inevitable, but at least you get to choose it. And then there's something that's even more complex than that in some sense, is that the problem with being a child is that all you are is potential, and it's really low resolution. You could be anything, but you're not anything. I think universities facilitate it, because you can go to university to not be something instead of going to university to be something. And it's Pleasure Island. And the price you pay for it, especially in the US, is debt. And you're enticed into it because the administrators can pick your pocket. So they rob your future self while allowing you to pretend that you have an identity, right? Very nasty. And you can't declare bankruptcy with your student loans in the US. It's indentured servitude. And it's precisely Pleasure Island. It's exactly that. And so tuition fees have shot way out of control. And part of the reason that universities don't make more demands on their students and let them get away with all the things they let them get away with is because they're basically, why the hell would you chase them out? They're $100,000 or more. So they can do whatever they want as long as you get to sell them to the salt mines. So then you go and you adopt an apprenticeship, roughly speaking, and then you become something. And when you're something, that makes the world open up to you again.
Over the decades, it has entered popular culture on a level that few literary works ever do, influencing everything from movies and TV to the English language itself, as in, for instance, the term Wendy House. The background of Barry's story, though, is far more complex and far stranger than many realize, so just in time for this weekend's release of Pan. Here are some interesting facts about Barry and his timeless creation that even die-hard Peter Pan fans might not know. For a children's story, Peter Pan's origins are surprisingly morbid. Many have theorized that Barry's fascination with the idea of a boy who wouldn't grow up began with the accidental death of his golden child older brother, David, when Barry was just 6 years old. Barry's mother took the death particularly hard, but found some comfort in the thought that David would remain a boy forever. Death seemed to plague all of Barry's close relationships. Writing in 1921, D.H. Lawrence said of his friend via biography.com, J.M., "Barry has a fatal touch for those he loves. They die." This included the Llewellyn Davies boys, the direct inspiration for Peter Pan and the Darling Children, as was made famous in the movie Finding Neverland. George, the oldest boy, was killed in World War I. Michael, Barry's favorite, drowned in what many theorize may have been part of a suicide pact. And Peter, after whom Barry's character was named, jumped in front of a train in 1960 after decades of resentment at being identified as the original Peter Pan. Death is also a major component of the Peter Pan story itself. In the first chapter of Barry's 1911 book Peter and Wendy, it's essentially stated that Peter Pan is a psychopomp, a term usually found in mythology. That refers to any kind of guide that escorts the souls of the dead into the afterlife. As Barry wrote, after thinking back into her childhood, she, Mrs. Darling, remembered a Peter Pan who was said to live with the fairies. There were odd stories about him, as that when children died he went part of the way with them, so that they should not be frightened. This detail puts a potentially very dark spin on what the Darling children's adventures in Neverland might have actually been. Barry revisited the idea of a child that wouldn't grow up in later efforts, including his plays Mary Rose and Dear Brutus, presumably. Before becoming a pirate, Captain Hook attended Eton College, the same school as Prince William, Prince Harry, and current British Prime Minister David Cameron, and also the same school to which Barry sent all but one of the Llewellyn Davies children. In Barry's 1904 play, Hook's dying words are, in fact, the school's motto, Florite, Etona, or May Eton flourish. Not only that, but, as Barry revealed in a 1927 lecture given at the school itself, Hook was a pop, a member of Eton's most exclusive club. Captain Hook was not the original villain of the story. He was written into a later draft of the play for purely practical reasons. The stagehands needed more time to change sets, so Barry devised an interstitial scene involving a pirate ship. In the first version of the play, the villain was actually none other than Peter Pan, according to Barry himself, who described the character as a demon boy and depicted him kidnapping children from their beds in the dead of night. Although Peter's image definitely softened once Hook was added to the story, he is still not an altogether heroic hero. As Alison Cavey, co-author of Second Star to the Right, Peter Pan in the Popular Imagination told The Week, he is selfish, devoted to his own entertainment, and except in battle scenes, incapable of taking care of himself. He also loves like a child, without thought to the effect his love has, or what it will mean if he forgets for a while. In 1929, Barry donated all the rights to Peter Pan to Great Ormond Street Hospital, with the stipulation that the amount of money they received through royalties should never be revealed. Some of Peter Pan's early popularity might have had to with timing, in the early 20th century, as Mike Albo describes on Refinery 29. A growing paranoia that boys were becoming soft led to an obsession with the concept of boyhood and what it means to be a boy. Peter Pan, along with other literary boy heroes like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, was a perfect example of the wildness and inner freedom that characterizes a man in the making. According to William Henry Gibson's trendy pseudoscientific guidebook Boyology, published in 1922. Not coincidentally, it was during this same movement that several organizations designed to foster a proper sense of boyhood among youngsters were founded, including the Boy Scouts of America, 1910, even. Today, it's standard for Peter to be played by an adult woman in stage productions of Peter Pan, as with the recent Peter Pan Live, starring Allison Williams. This originated with Victorian laws that prohibited children under 14 from working after a certain hour, and has since become tradition. However, according to Andrew Birkin, author of J.M. Barrie and the Lost Boys, the real story behind Peter Pan, Barrie himself dreamed of one day seeing Peter played by a real boy. It never happened, even though, at one point, he almost convinced Charlie Chaplin to direct and star in a version of the story in the original stories. Peter Pan doesn't live in Neverland. He lives in the far more pedestrian environment of Kensington Gardens, where Barrie first met the Llewellyn Davies kids. Among the actors to have played Peter Pan over the decades was Walt Disney in a school production. Years later, Peter Pan was set to be Disney's follow-up to his first animated feature, 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Difficulties negotiating the rights with Great Ormond Street Hospital followed by the outbreak of World War II delayed the film until 1953. Ultimately, Disney wasn't satisfied with his version of the character, saying that he thought he came off cold and unlikable. Peter Pan experts, however, say this is in keeping with Barrie's own characterization of Peter. Contrary to popular myth, Tinker Bell in the Disney movie was based on actress Margaret Carey, not Marilyn Monroe. Stills of Carey modeling Tinker Bell poses, including with giant prop scissors and other objects from the movie, can easily be found with a quick Google search. Adding even more fuel to the superstitious notion of Barrie's fatal touch, Bobby Driscoll, the 15-year-old actor who voiced and served as the model for Peter Pan in Disney's animated version of the story, tragically died just 16 years later due to drug abuse. His body was buried in an unmarked grave, and his family only found out a year later after contacting the FBI. Peter Pan was his last major role, according to moviepilot.com. Working titles for the 1904 stage production of Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up, included The Great White Father, referencing his nickname among Tiger Lily's tribe, and Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Hated Mothers. The latter version also would have seen Mrs. Darling, not Mr. Darling, playing the role of Captain Hook. There is the touch of the feminine in Hook, as in all the greatest pirates, as Barrie once said. Lesser-known literary inspiration behind Peter Pan was fellow Scotsman R.M. Ballantyne's The Coral Island, A Tale of the Pacific Ocean. A precursor to the modern young adult novel, it featured a cast of juvenile characters stranded on a Pacific island a la Robinson Crusoe. The Coral Island was also a primary inspiration for another classic, Lord of the Flies. Barrie was friends with some of the most important writers of the time, many of whom played on an amateur cricket team he started, including Arthur Conan Doyle, George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, Thomas Hardy, Rudyard Kipling, P.G. Wodehouse, G.K. Chesterton, and Robert Louis Stevenson. In fact, not only were Stevenson and Barrie well acquainted, so were their respective pirates. Captain Hook, wrote Barrie, was the only man ever feared by Long John Silver, the iconic villain from Stevenson's Treasure Island. Latest.
Okay, for those who are listening on Apple Podcasts, I'm going to take you on a trip and a video done by drones on Michael Jackson's ranch, Neverland. I think you'll see from the pictures that it's a very beautiful area. So visiting Neverland, you'll see that the ranch in the 1990s to the early 2000s was quite different. It just had some outstanding property, had a train station there, and just a lot of things going for it. Very nice home and a house that he resided in, and you could see the pools and stream, the ponds, and very nice. And you could even see Michael Jackson pictures, video of him cutting up with the kids and jumping off a diving board or being pushed off a diving board by kids. And so some of that led to a lot of issues later on, but I'm sure there were some times that things were quite well. And in there you could see such things as a movie studio, or a place where they could do performances. They even had a zoo there, and you'll see in the zoo that there's all kinds of everything from llamas to elephants to giraffes to tigers to about anything and everything, parrots. And along with that, there was a train. And the train would give rides, much like carnival rides, and then there were rides like you would find in a carnival. Or if you were going to, Disney World or Silver Dollar City in our location here, right? A lot of rides for kids so they could enjoy their time spent there. And you would see in pictures of Michael Jackson taking time to ride with kids. Now, if you take it to the 2020s, it looks very barren, and it was taken off the market. I think it's been bought by some billionaire, but not much is happening there. The land is pretty rough now. It looks a lot different. Where you had fountains, you see no fountains, but you see just water and ponds and standing water. So you can go around the area there and you can view all this thing. The train station itself has had some damage. It looks like there's some roof damage that's not been repaired. And then you can go into there and see the emblem has been kind of, not well maintained. And then if you walk around and look around on the streets, and again, this is through the eyes of a drone, you can see from the top that many of these buildings are not, well, they're still look okay, but they're not very well as far as, not like they were, not being used. Just makes a difference when you start looking at the property. So when you see the property without the kids and without people there, and without the train and without other things happening, then you can see that the state of disrepair is going down. Obviously no animals at the zoo. They've all been taken off, and so you don't see that there anymore. And again, when you look at the property and how barren it is, you have different thoughts of where it was in 1990s and then now in the 2020s, again 30 years later. So you really have to see the YouTube podcast with a video to get the feeling of what the things were before and after, because you can see where things were located. They're no longer there. It could be a basketball court no longer in action, or some kind of a go-kart track that's no longer being used, and just any building that was used not being in use takes a whole different appearance. So unfortunately, that's kind of where it sits right now, and that's kind of when you think of Neverland, and maybe that's something to think about for people that don't grow up. Neverland maybe is no longer there, and then you can go back and see some of the younger days of Michael Jackson and what kind of an entertainer he was, and then of course with some of the issues he had later on, how it became a problem with him in court, and of course his untimely death, but he still has a reputation that everybody follows, from the good and the bad. So Neverland is no more.